subdued.
Scott Butterworth, what's up?
Hey, how's it going, man?
So Gears of War 4 is fast approaching. October 11th it will release, and it will be the first original Gears of War game from developer The Coalition, who took it over from previous developer Epic Games.
Yes.
And of course a lot of people on The Coalition, including Rod Ferguson, worked on the games. But they have been showing more and more Gears 4, including pretty much all of their modes, which you got to play them recently.
Yeah, I just actually visited The Coalition up in Vancouver and got a chance to play all three of like sort of the major pillars of the game, the versus modes, Horde, and the single player campaign.
Cool.
Yeah, I think the most interesting stuff actually was, to my surprise, the Versus stuff. I played Versus really early in the year and was kind of like, oh, okay, this feels a bit like Gears, but wasn't all that excited. But I finally got to play some of the new modes, and they were actually really exciting and really different. The one mode that's really different for Gears is a mode called Escalation, which they repeatedly told us, like, oh, this was built for esports. We really wanted to have an esports mode.
Okay.
And, like, I'm not a huge esports fan, but I will say that I really love this mode. I could actually see this becoming, like, my go-to Gears mode just because there's so much strategy built into it. It's like the baseline Gears gameplay is all there. It's all, you know, like wall bouncing and shotgunning for people who want to do that kind of thing, but it's still like heavy and, you know, all the movement and the grit and the gore of the, you know, the 5 versus 5 team Gears gameplay. But layered on top of that are all these new sort of structures that make it way more team focused. So basically the way Escalation works is it's a best, it's the first to 7, it's a round based mode. And it's basically a point capture system. So there are 3 points on the map. Every point that you currently hold contributes to your point total. And once you get to a certain point total, you win that round. However, in any given round, you can also win by controlling all 3 points at the same time. So no matter how far behind your team is, you can come back and win the round like instantaneously by dominating the map, which is actually really cool. I mean, just in the time that I was playing, it led to some really great turnarounds.
Yeah, you could throw up some like Hail Marys at the end, I would imagine.
Yeah, totally. And it really does make strategy much more important because it's still a 5-person team on a map with 3 capture points. Just doing the math, it's like, how do you cover all of those bases, right? So it definitely made for some really interesting moment-to-moment like tactical decisions with my teammates. And then in addition to that structure of like the, you know, the 6, you know, have to win 7 rounds and you have to capture the 3 points. In between each round, the respawn timer actually goes up. So by the time you get to the 6th round, it's like 20 seconds between respawns. So revives and keeping your teammates alive becomes super crucial. If your team lost the previous round, you actually get to place a weapon on the map. You don't get to place whatever weapon you want anywhere you want, but you get to pick from pre-selected, kind of like, oh, you can place a boom shot here or you can place a sniper there, but your team gets to pick where that goes.
That definitely does sound esports inspired with the increased respawn timer. I know there's a few MOBAs that do that, and then the weapon placement kind of seems like that like deeper strategic layer underneath the foundational mechanics of a Gears game.
Yeah, totally. And you can actually go a lot of different directions with it. I mean, so if your team is really good at distance or you like to, you know, play the, you know, spacing game, you can put a sniper down because you know your team's really good with the sniper, or you can just take a completely different route and say, hey, we're going to put a boom shot over here as bait, let the other guys go for it and know that that's where the team's going to be, and while they're off doing that, we're going to go capture these other points.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so there's all kinds of different ways you can play it, and again, this is all stuff that I got to experience just with, you know, people I sat down to play the game with. We didn't really plan, we weren't really a team. This stuff just kind of naturally emerges as you're playing this mode, which is really cool.
So you said there were a few other modes you got to play, right?
Yeah, so Escalation is by far the most kind of hardcore of the new modes, but they've also added some just fun, I hesitate to call them casual modes, but things that are definitely designed to be more social and more fun. One of them was Arms Race, which is very similar to a mode that you'll find in Overwatch and like Gun Game in Black Ops, where there is a series of 13 guns. Both teams start with the same guns, and after a team gets 3 kills with that gun, they then are downgraded to the next gun below that. So the guns actually get worse as you go. You start with a boom shot, and I'm pretty sure you end just with a snub pistol.
Dang.
So it's kind of cool because the team that's in the lead is constantly like at a disadvantage because they have the worst weapons.
Sure.
And it allows the team behind them to kind of catch up. And it's insanely chaotic. It's unbelievable the amount of just carnage. It's sort of the opposite of Escalation, where you have to be really strategic in how you're moving, how you're positioning, and keeping everybody alive. Arms Race is just like carnage everywhere at all times, everyone running and everyone shooting. And there were definitely some hilarious moments where at one moment you have like a Gnasher in your hands, and then all of a sudden you have a sniper rifle, and you're right next to someone, and it can be a little frustrating at times, and I sort of wish the respawn timer was lower because given how fast-paced the game is, it's really frustrating to be out of the match. But it's just so chaotic. It's a really nice change of pace from like the seriousness and strategy of something like Escalation.
That sounds like especially kind of like it upsets the Gears formula, because so much of Gears is like noticing someone has a Nasher or someone has a sniper, so I'm going to take cover. But that sounds like it could lead to like some crazy twists in the gameplay.
Totally, yeah. And I think that was very intentional on the Coalition's part. They're like, okay, what can we do to kind of mess with the formula so it doesn't just feel like Gears?
Sure.
Because it's important to mention that Execution, like the classic team deathmatch mode that has been in Gears forever, is still there and hasn't changed as far as I know. We actually didn't get a chance to play it, but we were told during a presentation at the Coalition, like, hey, this hasn't changed at all. It's still there. It's still Execution. For people who want classic Gears, it's there. We're just adding new things in addition to that.
Right.
Another one that they added that's also kind of casual and fun and potentially leads to some really amazing reversals and turnarounds was Dodgeball. That's a mode we actually did get a chance to play earlier this year, but I had another chance to play it this past week.
Yeah.
For anybody who hasn't followed the game, basically the way that Dodgeball works is every time you get a kill, one of your dead teammates is brought back in. So you can go from being like 5 versus 1 to suddenly 4 versus 2, back to 3 versus 3. And you can really turn the tables as you're, like if you're the last man standing, you're not necessarily alone. Like if you can get one kill, you can claw your way back from the brink of defeat, which is really cool.
You just avoid like being outnumbered and try to isolate one person, so then like each time you have another person on your team. It's kind of like an attrition gameplay, or like tug of war almost. That seems super appealing. That's the mode I'm looking forward to most.
Yeah, totally. And yeah, just in my time with it, it's there are some like those moments when there's one guy left and his entire team is watching him and like, oh, come on, man, you can do it. And he gets that kill, like the room just explodes. Like, yeah, just celebration. Like it's built for
tagging him in.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to use the phrase because this is the PR phrase they were pushing on us, but it's totally built for like clutch moments. And like that proved true in my time with the game. I will say that if the teams are kind of unbalanced, the mode sort of falls apart. Like if you are on a team that is clearly worse than the other team, it's just like instant slaughter because there are no respawns. So you have like no recourse, no way to kind of fight your way back if you're not able to get that one crucial kill.
Definitely.
So it can feel, if the teams are not balanced, it becomes actually even more frustrating than certain other modes.
Okay.
But as long as you're confident in your teammates and as long as the matchmaking does its job, it ends up being a really interesting mode and like just a nice change of pace from traditional straight up team deathmatch.
Hey, get over here and stop watching me, please!
So I guess the overarching question about multiplayer that I have is, obviously at its foundation, it's very mechanically similar to earlier Gears titles. Are these modes doing enough to set it apart, in your opinion, from the few hours that you've spent with it? Does this would this be enough to bring me as a Gears fan back into the multiplayer mix?
I think absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's a little too early to judge. The final review build isn't going to be in for a few weeks, but I had a blast, and honestly, like it is still Gears. It plays like Gears. It feels like Gears. The classic modes like Execution are still in there, but there's enough new stuff that you can engage with if you want that I think will bring in fans and people who have kind of fallen away from Gears, because that stuff is genuinely new. Like Escalation is a genuinely new idea for Gears, and it really makes the gameplay, the moment-to-moment gameplay, kind of more meaningful and more tense, because, I mean, it's not just about staying alive or having a good, kill-death ratio. It's about dominating these points and working with your team to like outsmart the other team, and just all that strategy on top of the traditional Gears gameplay really does change the way you approach Gears. So yeah, I honestly think it's a really smart and comprehensive approach to multiplayer that hopefully, and I think will, bring old fans back to the series.
Awesome. That's exciting. We also have some coverage on Horde mode. We have videos. We have your written piece that you did, as well as a campaign written piece that you did. We got to play through a little bit as JD Phoenix.
Yeah, it's really interesting. There's a lot of new story stuff. I definitely recommend people go, if they're at all interested in the lore of Gears and the world of Gears, please go read my single-player campaign feature. There's a lot of really interesting stuff I got to play. And yeah, I got a little more hands-on time with Horde mode, but we played a ton of that at PAX, so we also have videos on the site for the first 10 waves, playing Horde mode 3.0, which is also like way more strategic now than it used to be. Really fun. It's definitely worth going and checking that content out for sure.
Cool. So Gears of War 4 will release for Xbox One and Windows 10 October 11th, I believe. And like Scott said, stay tuned to GameSpot for more news until then. Yeah. Thanks, Scott.
This unit does not tolerate resistance.